Hey, what's up everybody? This is a follow-up video to the last video where I said, am I nuts? I'm thinking about exchanging my 3861 for an 1861 Speedmaster. Well, I made the switch, and here are one of each specimen to compare and for me to explain why I think I made the right choice. So on the left is the new 1861 that I got. Shout out to Belmont Watches. I got it from Belmont Watches. It was the 1861 of the previous generation, the big box one, and it was still under warranty. And they gave me a really super fair trade. And on the right is a 3861 that I borrowed from a friend. This is Hesalite, so it's a good comparison because we're doing Hesalite to Hesalite comparison. So in the first video I explained, I put them on straps so that we're not distracted by the bracelets. Everybody tends to get distracted by the two bracelets, so we're going to compare them on very similar straps and on pillows to try and keep them on the same plane so that we can see the difference between the lug shape and profile and everything with as clearly as possible. So I explained in the last video that it was the shape of the bevel and the way that this ridge line right here is shaped. On this, you can very clearly see there, it very much has a inward curving sort of like parentheses shape. In comparison, this one you can very clearly see, especially on this side, how it comes in and then it has this curve upward, and it does that on both sides, top and bottom. And you know, it's a very subtle change. It's like they simplified the shape of this because this line terminates right at the corner of where this lug ends, whereas on this one, the line goes in and then it hits before the terminus of the lug, and that's where it has that little curve inward. And so this one almost, it's like there's a satisfaction in that. It's like they took the shape and simplified it. Something I did not realize about this when I recorded it before, but then as I was looking at it and noticing it right before I did the trade, is that it's actually just the way that the light is reflecting and the angle of the polished bevel. So on this one, on the 3861, the polished bevel has a more vertical, let's say, angle. So let's see if I turn it on its side. Let's hope that you can see. Let me try and focus on that. You can see that this angle here, let's see if I can get the light to reflect on that just right. Difficult. You can see that the angle of this is quite it's quite vertical. It goes straight up and down, and or not straight up and down, but if you're looking at the angle, you know, compared to horizontal or compared to vertical, it's at an angle that's significantly more up and towards the vertical. By comparison, you look at this, and the angle is still obviously at a very oblique angle, but it's closer to horizontal than it is vertical, and that is the So what I'm seeing when you look at the polished bevel when you're wearing the watch, you're seeing reflections from all over the room that you're in or the environment that you're in. And I think that has a major difference. And the reason that is at a different angle is because the shape of the profile of the polished or non-polished, the mid case is different. And you can see on the 3861, let me get it kind of at the end of this pillow so you can see better. You can see, and everyone like from Fratello is the one who's noticed this or mentioned this the most on all the coverage. On the 3861, angles down at the ends. It has this angle where it has this sharp downward turn, and that is what is creating that bevel at that crazy, you know, more vertical angle. On the 1861, you can see that it's longer and that it does not have that sharp downward turn. And this is like the profile that the Speedmaster had from like 68 onwards. And I didn't realize this until today, because I was looking at, today is the day when I'm recording this that they released the second generation, first Omega in space, so I was kind of looking at the Speedmasters on the website. This, the 3861, and if you're an enthusiast, you maybe already know this, this shape, this mid-case shape, comes from the one that, I think it's the 105.012. It's the one that they wore on Apollo 11, the one that Neil Armstrong was actually wearing. And it had much more clearly takes inspiration from that case. Now, I don't know in terms of lug distance, top to bottom, if that model, the one that Neil Armstrong wore, has the shorter 47 millimeter lugs or not, but you can see the difference here, and it's that shape that's creating the different angle, which is what causes is responsible for a lot of the difference in how these lugs look when you're actually wearing the watch. And the other thing is the shape, though, on the top here of that angle where it goes from the polish bevel into the inner part of the inner part of the lug. So, hopefully this video can kind of help you see what I'm looking at. My brother came over. He told me I was super neurotic, and then seeing them side by side, it was really interesting. He said he instantly felt like the 1861 looks like the professional tool watch. That's how I felt too, and there's something about it. We concluded we think it's because the more crowded sub-seconds creates the appearance of a higher contrast dial, even though they both have really high contrast white against black. This one has more white on the dial because of that, whereas this one, the less crowded sub-seconds, lets it just have more, it's just more black, and that's what we think. But, I mean, another difference that I hadn't noticed is the way that the chronograph seconds hand, the loom part, I don't know what you call that part of the watch, is closer to the tip versus this, which has a longer, it's further away and it has a longer tip. And I think that was interesting. The reason is that both of them are arranged to completely cover the Omega logo. It's not partially occluded, or it's not partially overlapping the Omega logo. It completely covers it. And on the 1861, the Omega logo is bigger and further down on the dial. And on the 3861, it's closer to that 12 o'clock hour marker. So my opinion about the dials is I think the 3861 looks like it's more refined. It looks more refined. It looks more thoughtfully spaced and proportioned, and I think it's the better dial layout. I think the step dial is also a bona fide improvement. I think it's superior, and I miss it. But there is a charming imperfection on the 1861, and like I said, it somehow comes across as more professional looking. The case differences aside, I wish I had the step dial. If there was only one thing that I could bring back from this, it's the step dial. Obviously, basically, ideally, if I could just take the 3861, the movement, the dial, and just shove it into the case of this, that's 100% what I would do. But there's something charmingly imperfect about the 1861 that makes it feel like the real deal. And maybe it's just the fact that we've basically had this layout with these features, these details, since the 80s at least. The 861 calibers, if you go old enough, the Speedmaster language, the Speedmaster word, had that more charming sort of old school look to it. I don't think, once they went to the 1861, they kind of buttoned it up a little bit. And then now with the 3861, it's like they've perfected it. And like I said, I guess if this is the next 50 years of the Speedmaster, I think we're in good hands. It's going to be great. But as it is now, like I feel like this has it just feels like the legit tool watch that it actually is. Winding on this one, the 3861 is better and easier because of the crown sticks out a little bit more. But listen, and the hacking is better, and the Mentos is better. The loom is better. It lasts longer. Now they're both strong loom right at first, and the 1861 lasts all night. So I wear this watch to bed, and at 2 a.m. or something, if one of my kids wakes up, I can still tell the time. It's fine. But the 3861 definitely has stronger loom for longer. And it's brighter. If I charged both of them up, it's clear like that the 3861 is definitely a little bit brighter for throughout the night, but not to the point that this is unusable. So it's kind of like it's a moot point. The case backs kind of wear differently. This one actually wears a little bit thinner because that mid case looks thinner. So even though it's a half millimeter thicker on paper, it visually just looks a little bit thinner. I love the big box, and it was a delight, and I felt so. It was a delightful opening experience to the big box. I got this strap changing tool, the loop, all that stuff. At the end of the day, like if the watch sucked, that wouldn't matter, but it doesn't suck, and that box rules, and I'm like, it feels like a real experience. So there it is. There's the difference between the two watches. I am 100% sure I made the right choice. I'm very, very happy with my purchase. I think if I think either one of these are fantastic. I am now of the opinion, and I was never of this opinion before. Get the Hesalite. It's the most authentic thing. The Sapphire is nice. Looking at the movement is nice. I rarely looked at the movement. This is the real deal. And I said in my last video, I think what I would love to see is if Omega made the Sapphire version of the black one a little bit more luxe by giving it a ceramic bezel and maybe giving it a lacquer dial to make it feel a little bit more like a modern thing. And then like a modern luxury watch while maintaining the Hesalite model with the aluminum insert and the steel case back so that enthusiasts can get the watch that went to the moon. And I think that's great. That's kind of what they've done with the white dial Speedy, though they still have an aluminum bezel on that. And on that one, if I bought the white dial, I would get the spiral winder ceramic loomed bezel insert for that, and I feel like that would be the ultimate rendition of that. As it is, you can't go wrong, guys. It's the Speedmaster. End of the day, you put it on your wrist, it looks fantastic. Talking about the different bracelets and stuff, everyone's got an opinion about that. This one is perfectly comfortable for me. It's been fine, and the lack of half links has not bothered me. I've been wearing a watch since I was 5. My wrist is completely acclimatized to wearing a steel sports watch, and since I was 5. So and I wear my watch is a little bit loose, so this is perfectly comfortable to me. And it's not any less comfortable than this. So your mileage, of course, is going to vary, but. All right. Well, I appreciate your help in telling me if I'm nuts or not. Actually, nobody helped me. I made the decision, and I made the right decision. Again, shout out to Belmont Watches. Shout out to my friend Spence for letting me borrow this 3861. And thank you guys for watching, and appreciate it. Happy Speedy Tuesday, if it happens to be Tuesday. And if it's not, happy Speedy every single day of the week. Cheers. Bonus. This is the 1861. With the 3861 bracelet. The end links don't quite fit perfectly flush or whatever like you would expect or hope them to, but I feel like there's a workaround for that people have talked about. It fits as is. This is interesting. This bracelet, when I had the 3861 Sapphire, it was fine. It wasn't my favorite look. Part of the reason I didn't wear it that much on this bracelet was that it kind of accentuated the aspects of the lugs that I didn't like. And I actually prefer male end links typically. So it's kind of nice to see this on this because this tells me this is a no for me. If I'm going to spend money for an Omega bracelet, it's going to be a flat link like the Speedy 57 or like the one that, the 50th anniversary Apollo, whatever it was. Bonus, guys. The watches without a bracelet on them. Look at that. You can see the difference. Every time I'd check the time whenever I had the 3861, every single time that I would check the time, my eye would immediately go to the bat ears on the top. Every single time I would look at the lug and it would drive me nuts, and then I'd have to check the time a second time to actually tell the time. See, to me it just looks like it's in parentheses. Now I can just rest easy because the lugs have the proper shape and I can get the time the first time. Neuroses.